A very good evening and welcome this edition of the Fourth Estate. Charles Mwango Shampage. We start this show on a tragic note. Another tragedy in Bududa, eastern Uganda, leaves at least 40 people dead. We have been told that the search is still on for about another 16 people. Those are missing, confirmed, and of course other people who are not accounted for at the moment. What a bigger question this evening is, were we better prepared this time than the first time a tragedy struck in that area? In 2010, March 2010, at least 350 people were killed. That number is actually not conclusive because the recovery of bodies was not completed in Bududa. We are being joined online by Mr. Robert Mwesigwa. He's Secretary General of the Uganda Committee of the Red Cross. They've been in Bududa even today, and they're traveling back. He'll be giving us updates on what's going on and lessons learned from the many disasters. We learned from official communication that at least 67 landslides have taken place in Bududa between 2010 and 2018. The question is, what lessons have been learned from each one of them and government's response? President Yoweri Museveni spoke out on the tragedy, and in his comments, he regrets that some of the actions that had been agreed upon haven't been taken, and they would have played a role in reducing the death toll. To discuss that with me tonight, I have Dismas Nkunda. Dismas, very nice to have you.
Thank you.
You've been fairly regular on the show,
yes.
So I don't need to introduce you in very deeper terms.
Okay.
Yes, in detail. But you can tell us what you do and for our viewers.
I work with the Trustees Watch. I'm the CEO of the Trustees Watch.
Thank you. We have with us from Obongi County and the Forum for Democratic Change, Member of Parliament, Fungaro Kaps Hassan. Very nice to have you.
Yeah, thank you very much, my brother, and I salute all of you, my dear listeners outside there. I am also the chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Government Assurances and Implementation, the one that looks at promises like the ones we are regretting about now.
And I have my colleague, Ona Peter Ekomloit, after a 2-week sabbatical, back. Ona, very nice to have you.
Thank you, Charles. Nice to be back. Good evening.
Ona is Corporate and Legal Affairs Director at Nile Breweries, AB InBev. We have online Mr. Robert Mwesigwa. Do we have you, sir?
Yes, I hear you out and here, and good evening to the panelists and the listeners.
Good evening to you,
Good
sir.
evening to you, Robert.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. I understand that you're on your way back from Bududa. Could you quickly bring us up to speed on what the situation is at the moment since the disaster on Thursday afternoon?
Yeah, thank you. Like you have mentioned in your introduction, today the head of state, the president, was in Bududa together with the prime minister and various ministers and all the leaders from the Bududa region were also there, and of course the people of Bududa, together with some of us in the humanitarian world and others who sympathize with them and were around. So today's event was more or less around 3 interrelated actions. One was there were prayers for those who passed on by the religious leaders from the various beliefs. And then also the head of state also was there together with his senior leaders in government to pass on their condolences and to bring hope to the people with respect to how they are going to move forward and in a way that we can get a lasting solution for the victims of that who normally suffer these calamities. But also, on the other hand, giving relief to the people of the affected. And in this one, Red Cross was taking the lead.
Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of the death toll, do we have any new numbers at the moment?
The numbers we are still talking of, I think the ones which have been in the public domain, in as much as the rescue teams are still on the ground, because there are still several people missing, and until either their bodies are recovered or it goes beyond a certain threshold where the chances of recovery become minimal, that's when then they can be called off, and then whoever is declared missing also is counted among those maybe who have lost lives.
So what numbers are we talking about?
By today, we are talking of 43 who died. And those are the bodies which were recovered and identified.
At this stage, Mr. Mwesigo, would you call your mission or the mission of the rescuers, is it still a rescue mission or a recovery mission? 4 days after the incident, the disaster.
I think it can qualify to be both, because today a certain young person, I think a young boy, was rescued who was hanging, who was being shielded by a rock and was recovered alive. So I think the rescue, in that respect, is still alive, though the chances are getting slim.
Okay.
Yeah.
As Red Cross, you've been deeply involved. You have a very close relationship and understanding with the government of Uganda, because you are the only humanitarian agency that is established by statute or recognized by statute in this country. If you look back, in 2010 March, a major disaster around Nametsi village flattened it, and 350 people officially confirmed dead, but that rescue or recovery effort wasn't completed from what we know. Do you think that we've learned sufficient lessons since the last disasters and the many, many disasters that have happened along the way, that you would find evidence in the response that both you as humanitarian workers and government have employed in responding to this particular disaster?
Yeah, thank you. I think you can look at it in this context that if you look at the tragedy of that time of 2010, when such big numbers lives were lost, compared to the subsequent disasters that happened, nothing has ever reached that magnitude of the people, the lives that were lost. Even this time around, 43, I believe you add there all those who are yet to be rescued, or to know where they, to take a decision where they are still alive or dead. It can't reach that number. So, again, there are so many factors considered. I don't want to be very simplistic. But assuming, looking at those parameters, you can say there is an improvement in terms of the measures being put in place, that were put in place. But maybe the question can be, what were the measures put in place? And then I think, in my opinion, there is need for further scrutiny and research as far as those measures are bearing fruit, and to what extent, and what are the gaps that haven't worked.
We need to be honest about this. Do you think that other than the mercy of God, there are actually practical steps that have been taken to mitigate disasters in that area? That you didn't have that high number of people in the affected area when this disaster struck, as compared to the path the landslides took in 2010?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say, because I know government and other agencies, including ourselves, there has been considerable investment in what you call risk reduction measures, if I may use those terms in the humanitarian work. And these risk reduction measures have been around how do you make the public aware of the risks they are predisposed to, and how do you address minimizing those risks. So there is a question of people understanding what is at stake. There is a question of helping people take practical decisions, but also there is a question of early warning. How do you send out the early warning signals that something is going wrong, and the triggers that create that kind of warning? Now, maybe to an extent you can say it has been more of the software other than the hardware. And what do I mean by the hardware? The hardware is more or less what the president talked about today, just to refer to his speech. The hardware was, how do you demarcate the mountains and you close off those that should be reserved, such that either they are gazetted as national parks, national park areas, or they are gazetted as forest reserves, whereby people cannot do active agriculture and the settlements, such that you preserve the ground, or so to say the climate, and which mostly the trigger is around the climate, the way the human beings interface with nature. Now, to that extent, the people know what to do. The process has been ongoing, and it is yet to be completed. The other aspect of it, of the hardware, is then what do you do with the people who are living in those risky areas, who are supposed to be evacuated and relocated? Again, there are positive steps taken by government, but people are still there, they haven't finalized the process. And the third aspect is around, then how do you make sure that all these interconnecting factors, if you have to resettle people, if you have to gazette those areas, and then what does it mean across the board in terms of policy? Because at the end of the day, it is not only Bududa, but all the other mountainous areas, go to Wenzori, go to Bududa, even now in Kawari, Rwanda. So I'm looking at the broader spectrum as in general.
Okay.
So to that extent, the process is, even in the words of the president, he was apologetic that it has been slow, and maybe by being slow, we could, if we had moved faster, some of these problems, like the recent tragedy of Bududa, could have been avoided, or minimized, the damage would have been minimized.
Okay. My colleague Dismas has a question for you.
Yeah, my question is, you as an entity, do you have a contingency plan such that if such events happen?
I'm not sharing you properly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe to the microphone.
Huh? You know, just go ahead and ask the question. He's not hearing clearly.
Okay, I was asking you as Uganda Red Cross, do you have a particular contingency plan that you have for such a situation? Because the reaction that we got by people coming in and going into Bududa was very slow. Do you have a contingency plan?
Maybe you repeat it for me.
He's asking, yes, he's asking about whether you have a contingency plan. As an entity, as Red Cross, do you have a contingency plan to deal with this disaster? Because there were reports that, well, news crews and other people arrived in Bududa quicker, government did not arrive as fast, and I think rescuers, it was local people trying to help where they could. I mean, deal with the tragedy on their own.
You see, the contingency plan goes hand in hand with the level of preparedness. And the preparedness goes also encompasses several factors. One of them is, do you have trained people that have skills for that kind of emergency? And also, do you have the contingent stocks, as we call it, that in case it happens, then you are able to save life and preserve property. Now, as Red Cross, yes, but as Red Cross, we are auxiliary. We can't take over the role of government. And so, when you talk of the rescuers, as soon as the disaster hit, yes, the Red Cross response teams, the government, I know the Prime Minister's office, they have also people they have trained. They went on the ground to start on the rescue mission. And that's how so many lives have been saved, because within as the rains were still coming to an end, these people swung in action. We can do better, but at least we are far ahead compared to what used to happen in the past.
Okay.
Do we have the contingent measures in terms of making sure that the necessary relief supplies and support comes timely? we can do better. We can do better because one of the challenges globally, which is not only limited to Uganda or even outside the Red Cross, is it is always a bit difficult to invest in the emergency preparedness. But it becomes difficult to respond or don't have to respond. And that has always been a big debate as how, because if you invest in preparedness, you even have addressed 80% of the disaster.
Yes, that raises
been a challenge.
That raises the bigger question, Mr. Kwesiga, that Uganda National Water and Sewerage Corporation released a statement and photographs of landslides that were not to the scale of the ones that hit on Thursday, which ripped apart their water supply pipes and damaged or interrupted water supply in that area. 2 days before. 2 days later, we find people dying in the same area. So the question would be, those contingency plans, the early warning systems, a government putting its foot down and saying, issuing evacuation orders, did that happen or did it not happen?
You know, to an extent you are right, because the warning signals were there. Were there. There, by the way, I don't know whether you are aware, together with the listeners and the panelists, that there is a plaque on that mountain which extends from Kenya up to Uganda, passing through Plain District, the Bududa, and these other districts of Baramburi, 40 kilometers of that plaque. Now, that itself is a warning that we live with, and everybody is aware of. Yeah? Now, so the heavy rains, as they were building up, yes, this was not news to the people who are on the ground and those who are supposed to know. Now, at times, it is like people hoping against hope that it will not happen. And at the end of the day, it happens anyway. So, but in terms of the mechanism to alert people, the mechanism in the community is there. There are these community radios, there are even the people, there are these community leaders who are supposed to go around telling people that wake up, something is going to go wrong. So those triggers were activated. But again, you see...
At what level were they activated?
At the community level.
At the community level. What role did the government play at the bigger level? What role did you play at the bigger level?
Yeah, I wish I would look for Red Cross because the government may not be too much of an... You know, we auxiliary to government and independent of government.
Appreciated.
Yes, so, yes. But I know government from what because we attend all these forums where government is involved, we have been in coordination with them. They tell us that at least on the ground, their people were there. But for us as Red Cross, like I said, we have what we call the Red Cross first responders, who are our main point of contact on the ground. And we inform them to go and alert the public that there is high risk, and they should go on the lookout and on the alert. But on the other hand, as Red Cross, we always have our emergency stocks to respond. And that's why, as soon as the tragedy happened, we had to move our emergency stocks to the location. But bear in mind, the road, the bridges were cut off. So that also hampers immediate response. It becomes also an impediment to immediate response.
Thank you. I need to draw my colleagues into this discussion, the other panelists. Honor, we're not taken by surprise. I think the most enduring image that the country saw when Bududa 1 happened in a big way in March 2010 was the president arriving in military fatigues with an AK-47 slung across his chest. Now you have another response, and the president was there today. He apologizes. Government hasn't implemented the plan of action as had been agreed after the first tragedy. Why do you think the government and this country and the people who live in that area again get caught by surprise by natural disaster that everybody saw coming?
Well, we have a honorable member of parliament here. Maybe he can speak for government.
No, Parliament was supposed to investigate.
Otherwise,
They sent a
Charles, first of
delegation.
all,
Yes.
like everyone else, we must extend our sincere condolences to the families and other Ugandans for this tragedy. I do not definitely think government can necessarily be blamed that it happened when it happened, because this has been a global phenomenon. Historically, this kind of tragedies happen, and I don't think any government can ever claim to be truly prepared. Maybe you can only argue what happened after it happened, but whether it could foretell to the dot, sometimes it's not possible. And I think the debate should really be, did we have enough, what you have almost asked, enough lessons? And did we take enough action? Because they are talking of 60-something warnings, similar but without high death toll happenings of landslides. So what was then done to make sure before, first of all, this is related to seasons. It's related to rain. So it was actually possible to make plans for the rain season. I'm not a big fan of this argument that is being peddled by many, including the president, that people should necessarily relocate, because there is no evidence across the world that shows that people are prepared to relocate. In fact, wars have happened because of attachment to specific areas. People have gone everywhere in the world, but they will always want to go back to a certain spot. So it's understandable when these people want to be there. But I think what could have been done was to say, whenever rain sets and rain can be measured, that when the rain level reaches this, is likely to be a landslide. At that point, people should have a place they would go to take shelter and come back when the rain stops. Whether there will be a landslide or there will be no landslide, there should always be a deliberate effort to say, now we have measured, the rain has rained, this is the level that normally triggers a landslide. It's wise for you to first move to a shelter and then come back to your homes. If your crops are destroyed, unfortunately, maybe there will be compensation or not. But to say that people should leave, that's why it has not worked, and it will not work.
Honorable.
There is nobody anywhere in the world, including those who are telling others to leave, who is prepared to leave their ancestral lands.
I hear you there. Bududa is happening just in the wake of a major Hurricane Michael in the United States, which hit badly devastated Florida state. But the thing is, as Parliament, you were in Parliament in 2010.
Yes.
I would imagine.
Yes.
You sent a delegation,
Yes.
a committee, to visit Bududa. The president visited. Every government, important government people visited Bududa, and Parliament went silent since then. I don't know if you produced a report, if there was a report produced, and what effect that report was.
Yeah, thank you very much, my brother. And I am with the people of Bududa. May the souls of the deceased rest in eternal peace. Now, Parliament makes policies.
Let me apologize to our viewers. The noise we're hearing is because the guest we have online is traveling. So that's coming from, I think, from the telephone. But technical people will try to manage that. Yes, please go ahead.
Parliament makes policies which must be implemented by the executive. Unfortunately, when the executive doesn't implement, Parliament is drawn into some kind of post-mortem, doing investigation on things which have already failed. We have a system where the ministry concerned, the ministry in the names of disaster preparedness and response, does not prepare to prevent disaster. That's why you can always see them responding when things have gone bad. In our case here, as Parliament, money was approved in 2010. People talked about the issue of relocation. We also talked about the issue of land reclamation. I, for one, I think if you go to the Hansard, I was among people who talked about the possibility of reclaiming land from within the area where people historically lived, and they will continue to live there. We have had issues of land reclamation from the desert, from the sea, to create land for people to live. So from those mountains which are affected by this kind of problem, if a project is created with a lot of seriousness by a serious government, preventive measures will have been taken to the extent of, first of all, relocating the people temporarily and taking off those who would be areas which will like fall off easily. If you like, you could talk about like leveling the areas which are so stiff, so that trees can be planted and people can live there comfortably with the reduced slope. There are cities in China, in Asia, which are built on leveled mountains. If you use that example, I use this example in the house. People laughed at me. They asked me whether you're going to level the mountain there. I told them no. This is a concept which can be adjusted to our situation and to our time. But really, the whole thing requires thinking critically and scientifically to the extent that the slopes of the mountain, and by the way, that's the volcanic mountain. It's not like the other mountains which are hard. They are not rocks. Those are like soils which are loose. They can easily go off. But if you use a blast, you use whatever mechanism to reduce and to remove the loose soils which can easily fall off. You can reduce the slope and create some kind of level ground where people can live without the risk of falling off, sliding when rain comes. But government is not thinking like that.
You're being futuristic, aren't you, B?
But you see, thinking theories, when you come with the hypothesis, you go to experiment and you come to law. This is how scientific thinking it goes.
And I think
so
what I remember is saying across the world, human beings have had to deal with nature. Actually, one of the biggest weaknesses we have as Africans is that we have remained slaves to nature. Forget about the mountain sliding. When it rains, we suffer from floods. When there is no rain, we die from drought. So all the time we are victims of nature. We have not yet caught up with
scientific. We haven't tamed nature.
Yeah, we haven't
to a certain level. No, because you can't tame entirely.
To pick up from here, disaster is a security problem. It kills people. Now, when there is a threat, a security threat, there must be like a front line all the time. You don't move until this danger is removed. Now, where is the deployed office of the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness in Bududa or in that area? You find the OPM is in refugee settlements where they see money flowing from the refugee disasters. They are in Obongi, they are in Koboko, in Iyumbe. But you ask them, where is your office equivalent to the one in Koboko, in the refugee settlement, where you're put in Bududa? So that your eyes are always there, watching what is happening with my people who are disaster prone. They are not there. They are just there chasing for money from refugees, and they claim that we are the best keepers of refugees. How can you be the best keepers of refugees when you are the best? We are not the best keepers of your own people who are also affected by disasters. Refugees are affected by disasters in the form of war, and you go thumping your chest in conferences, international conferences, that we are the best keepers of people in disaster. Here are people in disaster in your own country. You don't know how to keep them. So this government actually should be dissolved.
Why don't we start with dissolving Parliament?
Somebody promised a tsunami for this government, but it failed to work. So
why don't we first? I'll pick this up after short break. But I just want to come to Dismas briefly. What's your own appreciation of the government's response?
Poor. There was no response. You journalists were quicker to get into Bududa faster than government officials. And we did call, I remember I was on a TV program, and we did call the commissioner for disaster preparedness. And he said, well, we don't have the resources to use to be able to respond. So it's the usual thing of saying we don't have resources, we can't respond in time. And yet, these are disasters which this is a situation that had been known well before. The Meteorological Center had warned that the rains were going to be heavier than usual. The Makerere University department of one department of Makerere had predicted that something wrong was happening on that mountain, and they took no option. So
But you see, the question of low
I'm
resources.
afraid we'll come back to, we'll go into the deeper debate. But like the Secretary General of Uganda Red Cross has told us at the beginning of the show, you have a 40-kilometer crack on that mountain.
Yeah.
But most importantly for me, and I think we need to salute a government agency, which is National Water and Sewerage Corporation. It released photographs and a statement that water supply systems had been affected because of cracks on that same mountain, in that same area in Bududa and Manafa, where this carnage has happened, with photographs showing the huge cracks. And I waited to hear an evacuation order being given by the government, and it never came through. And then I saw people trying to pull out their dead from the debris. We'll take a quick commercial break. I hope we still have Mr. Kwesiga online, and we'll continue to engage in this. What lessons were learned from the first disaster in Bududa to respond to the latest disaster last week? Last week on Thursday. We'll be right back. You're still watching the Fourth Estate, and we're trying on the show to grapple with the government's response to another disaster in Bududa that left at least so far 43 people dead. Someone is asking why is nobody reporting about the number of missing, and asking that the National Resistance Movement government boasts of having swept LC elections. That can they use the same data to tell us how many actually missing? From what I was able to pick earlier, is that the estimated number of missing is about 16 people. If you add that number, it will bring, if they are confirmed as dead or confirmed as missing, 16. It will take the number to about 60 of those who have perished in this accident. This is a message actually from Gift in Nansana. He says, there is one thing that I'm not getting right. Government and media houses talk about the number of those that have been confirmed dead, but I haven't had any update or mention of those individuals who are missing. Is it because they don't have those figures? NRM have been boasting of sweeping away all the villages, the village LC1s in Bugisu sub-region during the LC1 elections. Can they use the same data to update the nation about the number of missing people? Well, Gift, one of the challenges of confirming the missing is that some people might have actually fled or are staying with relatives. You have dealt with these situations, especially in the Democratic Republic of Congo and elsewhere, in part of your work. It may not be very easy to declare somebody missing and confirm that these are the people who are missing and we fear them dead.
But why are they giving the numbers to be 16, 14 of the people missing? More so, it was a market day, trading centers which were so busy, 2 of them affected with the people even going to do trading. There are people who went from outside Bududa. There are visitors to stay in that area. Now, they are missing 2. How do you account for them? There were also people who came from the neighboring areas of Kenya, because that area is along the border. It was a market day. The information we got as also FDC, we have our people on the ground, is that the number of the missing is not this one. Government just want to make the issue feel less destructive by saying the people who have died are fewer, those who are missing are fewer. They have not even told us the number they have been able to save through their preparedness.
For me, I wouldn't be surprised if both the government and FDC are having wrong numbers. Really, the government machinery at local level, the civil machinery, like if you went to a typical sub-county and asked for them information about the population of the sub-county, they don't have. Even with all this supposed advantage of national IDs and what, it's very dysfunctional. The political machinery that delivers elections of LC1 and all this has a total disconnect with the ability of what used to be chiefs. The old chief who knew every household does not exist anymore.
What Gift is questioning is that actually, why can't the ruling government, the ruling party, leverage its political, its party wing?
But I'm telling you, the election, the LC1 results, or the people who supposedly vote, are not necessarily the same information that a sub-county chief who is supposed to be the administrative unit.
He's questioning the
Would be able to...
the management of the information systems in as
Yeah,
far
so
as election and knowing people. But from a security
So
perspective...
what you're saying is that we care more about elections and people will vote for us than we care for
I guess
actual people.
Everyone in politics, including the opposition, cares more about elections. They don't really care about
But we are not
who
the
is
same
who.
like NRM, really. They are the most careless people. When it comes to taking care of lives of citizens of Uganda, where you don't expect to go and get money directly, they don't go to those things. So
Alex
that's
Mbonye
where
is
the
asking an
problem
interesting
is.
question, and I'd like to throw it because it's related to the discussion we're having. He's saying, my sincere condolences to the people of Bududa. Are we, as we interrogate inadequate response from government, I was disturbed by the rather general silence from us Ugandans who have at the quickest moments tweeted and retweeted when the slightest of disasters befall other nations. Are Ugandans bothered? I think more Ugandans are thinking about the Charenga concert, whether it will happen or not, than a tragedy in Bududa.
But you see, for some people, they become indifferent because this is something that has happened over a period of time. In 2010, it was about 350 people. And I would have expected that actually, since it's the story that is trending, that almost all Ugandans would have come. We should have had actually a national day of mourning. We should have had quite a number of things done in order to get the consciousness of the rest of the country.
Why doesn't that happen? Let me come to you. Let me come to you with a bit of specifics. When there was a tragedy in Kanungu, the number was closed without a thorough investigation of exactly how many people died in Kanungu. We said over 1,000. Specious Awandera Kaziwa was the vice president then and went to Kanungu. And it was closed. And everybody forgot and moved on. The first Bududa disaster, the number 350 is when the search, rescue, and recovery effort was closed. Nobody bothered to go back, including members of parliament, whether they are from the ruling party or from the opposition, to ask questions and say exactly how many people died in Bududa 1. Now, you are there, you have numbers. Kwesiga told us it's better. I mean, it's a bit of comforting that the number of dead is not as high as was in the first disaster. But where...
But still people died.
Yes. Why do we lack
Well, I want to say,
to
first
detail?
of all, the WhatsApp groups that I followed kind of talked about this incident. But of course, we are from Teso, so we are much more closer to the Bugisu region. So I'm sure perhaps other parts of the country do not have the same geographical connection. But I'm also not surprised when Ugandans tend to move on. This country, sadly, has coexisted with death for a long time, mass death, you know. A lot of deaths has happened in this country through especially wars. I mean, if you think of places like in the north where people lived in IDPs, a huge population grew up in IDPs witnessing death, literally, people dying by the day. And a lot of people have really got sort of, I mean, they have lost serious feeling. I mean, in many communities, death used to get people really worked up, people would cry, people would throw themselves all over the place. But now you can even go to a funeral and people are just quiet. You know? Ugandans have really been hit by death for so many decades. And they no longer get terribly surprised by death, which is sad. But
the people who are in the different corners of Uganda are connected by the government, the spirit of Ugandanness. We talk about patriotism. Patriotism should have included these kind of things. Love for your country. And the country extends from Kisoro to Bududa, Kisoro to Kidgum. So the government should pass this kind of message that love yourselves, love your people. And we have had this problem in Bududa, and the people feel and express their solidarity through that kind of network of government. But now when government doesn't respond, government cries of lack of resources, when they have capacity and progress, for example, the special forces. The special forces, if you look at China, when there's a disaster, you see the special forces of China going to the hard situation to help people. Now here is a situation where we have our own special forces. Bridges were broken, but helicopters were not dropped there. People were not taken there to help. The soldiers of the special forces should have been there because they're supposed to go where everybody else cannot reach. If there is a fire here and nobody can come here, the special forces will be the only people to go there.
But special forces, I think it's a name.
But you agree, Mr. Fungaro, that in 2010,
in disaster is supposed to be
in
their
2010,
role.
the Uganda People's Defense Forces took the lead in the search and rescue efforts.
Where are they now? Where are the special forces? You see, when you talk about the special
I think
forces,
even in the,
you go beyond the UPDF.
Even in the Prime Minister's office,
you go beyond. Because the UPDF is supposed to be ordinary. But now, where there is hardness, where the UPDF ordinary cannot go, you bring in the special forces. Where are they in this issue with their helicopters? Where's Muhozi? Oh, the other people, the commander, the new commanders.
Muhozi is not is no longer in the special forces. And the other one is the chief of defense forces. But Dismas, there is a question about governments, the lessons learned that we're trying to explore now. After 2010, governments announced a range of issues which Kwesega shared with us, and the president talked about in his speech this afternoon. One, you needed to relocate people or encourage people to live on their own if they can, to live on their own and find other spaces. The bigger question is, why do you think that the government of Uganda cannot dedicate resources and say, like Ona said, I am so much attached to this land, there is a value to it, and you buy it from me, to allow it, to allow nature to reclaim it as either a national park or a forest reserve?
You see, what happened was initially they had gotten land in Kiriandongo, in which they wanted to locate these people. They actually located some people, but these individuals, I was discussing it on radio with Honorable Peter actually on Friday. These individuals, the place you took them, Kiriandongo is a flat place. It's like, but they come from a mountain. It's like telling me from Kisoro that you're going to put me in a flat place which I'm not used to. So to that extent, some individuals, then they started questioning and saying, who is actually going to take over our land? You understand? Politicians came in and started saying, you know, I think where they have taken it to Kiriandongo, your land back home will be taken. And these people started,
no, but there was also a mention of another place which was nearer with some kind of
Bulambuli. Yes.
So what happened with Bulambuli? There were cases of monies approved, cases of corruption. Investigations were done, but report not yet issued. You know this thing of ours when it was
2,800 acres actually.
A problem of still the implementer of decisions made or policies made. What has happened to the Bududa, to the Bulambuli project?
Okay.
Where is the money?
I just want to insist that
Yes.
apart from people who are said to be encroaching the national park, who could be having no land so can be taken as people who have their own land and are battling nature. For me, especially since this problem is seasonal, the cheapest and realistic approach is to set up rain season shelters within Bugisu, where these people can be taken at a lesser cost. They would be driven those places.
It's the same condition.
The season within which the landslides are likely to happen often is predictable. Maybe it's within only a month. After which they come back. But this illusion of saying people should leave their land, I don't see it happening anywhere in the world.
I hear you on that.
You can imagine people like the Jews who went all over the world, and much as they were persecuted, in many other places, they were fairly, you can say, comfortable. But they had to fight for this small patch of desert, which is home to them. They are coming from all parts of the world to be in there.
Yes,
I hear
so
there is no amount of nature that you can convince individuals say is too hostile for them.
It is also practiced, I think, in very many other countries, especially when issues come to nature.
Yes.
That you want to reclaim, for example, Nakivubo Channel. It is settled by people. In some cases, they have been issued proprietary rights by the same government. That rather than stand here and issue an order and tell them, get out of here, government appropriates its own resources and purchases from those people to encourage them so that they're given an incentive to break that attachment to land. But it doesn't happen here. You hear orders, get out of this place, If you want to be safe, get out of the swamp. You can want to reclaim a swamp, or you can a vulnerable mountain like this, and pay people to get out using government resources. But we still have, I understand we still have Mr. Kwesiga online. Do we still have you, sir? Yes, sir.
I'm still there, and partially I listen to what you are saying, but there are some where I don't clearly hear.
Okay, let me put a direct question to you. The relocation plan, were you able to follow through or to, yes, because you act as an auxiliary to government, as you said earlier, but have you tracked the relocation plan to Walambuli, the relocation of people to Kiriandongo? What exactly happened?
Yeah, I think if I answer that question, one point I wanted to emphasize, listening to the panelists, disasters, even in the developed countries, it is always difficult to say that no life will be lost or no property will be lost. Like you have pointed out, whether it is in America or in these countries in Asia, which are always prone to disasters. What matters most is what are the mitigation measures put in place, such that at the end of the day, you minimize loss, but whether for life or for property, but at the end of the day, there is a mechanism to quickly look for solutions, not keep repeating yourself. If you keep repeating yourself and it is the same problem, then that means there's something fundamentally wrong. And I think to an extent, you can equate that what is happening in Bududa. Now, having said that, yes, I think when you decide to help people, there are several factors, and some of them we have mentioned them. Now, take an example. Some of the people are taken to Kiriandongo, some of them came back. Quite strange. Now, then the question can be, are people that irrational, or there are some compelling factors that keep them predisposed to this kind of situation? And they can be culture, they can be perception, they can be even disinformation. They are something else. Now, but as regards moving forward on how to allocate people, I think the president mentioned two strategies around it. One is those who are going to be taken, who are going to be relocated and given pieces of land outside the risk areas where they are, and those who opt not to relocate, on how they can be supported financially to either look for other pieces of land within the Bududa region or even the Bududa itself. But bottom line being that they must leave the house areas where they are staying now, where the habitats are. Now, but I think the other aspect of it I would want to emphasize is coordination. You see, whether state actors or non-state actors, if the coordination is not as effective, then you will start having some of the gaps, like we are having in this kind of emergency. Now, effective coordination is key, but also effective coordination within the government department must be put in place if we are to be on top of the game in this way.
Mr.
In as far as concerned, it is now to put action into those words the head of state has mentioned, and all of us which we know that that's the way to go about it.
Mr. Kwesiga, we're saying you're saying this 8 years after the first disaster, 67 smaller disasters in between.
Yeah?
Yes. I mean, anybody with a little bit of seriousness. Yes, in those other countries that have similar disasters, the United States has these hurricanes. Indonesia has Japan. Yes, countries that are vulnerable to typhoons, to tsunamis. They respond in a way. They improve the building code, for example. They build embankments to protect people from, to stop either the water or limit it. They build dams. They do other things. You do not see that in government's thinking at any one time. But I ask a question.
Above all, you do not see this illusion of saying that people should leave an area permanently.
Yes. Can I just conclude on this? The idea that instead of telling people that government will assist you to relocate, do you think from your experience as Red Cross that a land purchase plan would be more viable to convince people to disconnect with their natural attachment to that particular piece of land?
I think it can be an option. That's what comes to my mind immediately. But I think, bottom line, you put yourself in a situation of the person who lives in that kind of high-risk situation. What would convince you to go? To go to the unknown, to sort of have a clear roadmap and somehow you are convinced that that's the way to go, or to keep risking your life knowing that it can happen, but you wish against wish. Now, so I think the various options which government has put in place, but which have been on the table, just to look at it broadly, that on the table, what has been a problem has been action, falling short of action to implement those strategies.
Okay.
But I'm also
I
keen.
think that's what we are normally short of. At times we are not short of the strategy, but we are short of action. And I think that's the challenge.
We are talkers and not doers.
Just one question. Of all these options, which one has been suggested by the people affected themselves? Or we are trying to impose options on them, that's why they keep on doing the opposite?
Maybe help me, I did there are some
Okay, Onapito is asking, of the many options, of the options that you have outlined, which one has been suggested by the affected people themselves? Or rather, is it that they are being imposed on them?
I can only answer by quoting what was said.
Yes.
The chairman of the district,
Yes.
in his own words, mentioned that people are more than ready to move, are more than ready to relocate, and those who are saying anything contrary, they are not the people present, they are not the people who do that. So that's what the chairman said.
Okay.
That's the safe way to do things.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much. Mr. Kwesiga, thank you very much. Maybe if you have any last words, because I think we'll lose you after we take the break. We don't want to keep you on the phone for this long.
Yes, my last word is, and I want to speak it, I think, was from one of you, that at times we appear to be concerned more with what happens with our neighbors, which is okay, because our neighbors are also our brothers. But my last call is that as Ugandans, at times we get observed and some of these things either which excite us, but we fall short of what we can do for our dear brothers and sisters. And so my call is all of us Ugandans that in our own way, in as much as other actors, government and the rest of us, institutions can do their part. But on the individual basis, if we can also show support in support of our brothers and sisters in Bududa. And as Red Cross, no matter what we do, when we launch an international appeal, especially concerning Ugandans, at the same time we launch a Europe appeal. And this time also launching a Europe appeal, calling upon Ugandans in the individual capacity or corporates. Nakito is there, so I'm talking to you. And others, and the institutions and the rest, show cause and do something in support of our brothers and sisters in Bududa, such that we can say that we are with you, and as fellow Ugandans, we're also making our contribution our own way, support you.
Do you have an estimate?
This platform that we are launching it, and we call upon all Ugandans to support it.
Do you have an idea how much, in money terms, that support, that appeal is?
tomorrow we have worked out our figures and we'll share them with you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Robert Kwesiga, Secretary General of the Uganda Committee of the Red Cross, for joining us. And I know that you're still traveling from Bududa, where you were earlier in the day.
Thank you for having me and for also sharing our thinking with the rest of Ugandans.
Thank you very much. I have a message here. Someone says, on Bududa, sadly, nothing new. The Ministry of Disaster Preparedness is like the rest, understaffed, underfunded, and uncoordinated. God forbid, if school fires resumed, few schools have firefighting equipment. Road accidents, no speed governors, no safety belts. We are just a reactionary society, and only leadership is needed. Nteja Simu had sent a long message earlier. I'd wanted Dismas to read it because I saw you have it.
That I've learned this afternoon of another TV show, on another TV show, that government released 8 billion to relocate Bududa people to Kiryandongo, and this money was stolen by the area MP. As a result, there is no land in Kiryandongo to settle these people. I think he meant Bulambuli. Maybe, Charles, you could throw more light on this. What happened to the relocation plan in 2010? And now that the president has apologized, who has he fired? Because it implies someone slept on the job.
Thank you. And Nteja Sim also says the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness has generally been described as a disaster itself. It works like fire brigade and looks like it's a useless ministry. That's the judgment, but I saw the minister, Hila Ronek, on the very first day responding, and his colleagues in the ministry and the office of the Prime Minister trying to respond to this disaster. But we can evaluate their efficacy. Dismas, this is something before I take a break?
I do think that because when we spoke, some time ago, we spoke to Martin Owol, the commissioner, and it was the usual lamentation. We don't have the resources, we don't have the equipment, we have only sent one soldier, I think it was a brigadier, to the place. It's just a piecemeal attempt of dealing with something that is, and the timeliness, the quickness with which they get that place, it's really wanting.
My apologies to Bills Agaba. The message I read earlier was from Agaba Bills, and I know you always send messages and you watch the show. So my apologies that I didn't mention your name when you sent your message, but very appreciated that. We appreciate that you're sharing with us and watching the show. We'll take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll continue with this discussion and also tackle a little bit of the politics in the country and in the region. We'll be right back. Welcome back to this last segment of the Fourth Estate, and of course our condolences to all those who lost lives and to the relatives of those who died in the Bududa tragedy. Just before we end this discussion on Bududa, I want to start with you, Anapito. You've been at the closest to the center of power.
Yeah, that's what they assume. There are people who have been closest without you knowing.
No, you were presidential press secretary. You were a member of parliament before. What can be done to mitigate disasters like this? And were you to be in government, what would you do differently?
Look, first of all, you must give credit to the president. I think on most occasions when these disasters have happened, he has been to the scenes, and at least you cannot say he's not concerned. But unfortunately, the machinery, as he often also acknowledges, is dysfunctional in many respects. So many of the things he says should be done do not get done. To me, on this particular issue, I believe the challenge you have is that when a landslide happens and then time passes, sadly people forget. And their attachment to the area is stronger than the bereavement that will have happened, especially if someone was not touched. You sort of think it's a bad day for another person. I still maintain that government is going around circles on this issue. What they need is to treat this way like the Western world treats hurricanes. They know it will come, but there is always a contingency plan for people to leave and come back. So since the landslides happen seasonally, there should be a way of getting people to leave when the danger is at its highest and come back when there is no risk. Because most of them know that when it passes, it's normal. So you can, now when it has happened, everyone thinks that's the end of the world. Somehow, with time, they think they can resume their lives.
Honorable.
So you need to provide a temporary area within Bugisu with the modern amenities for people, not just one place, a number of places because of numbers involved, for them to move when there's adequate notice and adequate evidence that is happening.
Wilson Watera, the chairman.
But this idea of saying they should leave, they should not come
Wilson
back.
Watera, the chairman of Bududa, said earlier today, people have been ready to move.
But that's the
And
chairman
someone read
speaking
the
like
message,
every,
yes, someone read the
government
message
official.
here, and I think this must had it. And Honorable Fungaro
If they were
talked
ready
about
to
it.
move, they would not wait for government
Yes,
to tell them.
Honorable Fungaro Caps also talked about it. Money was provided 8 years ago
Yeah,
to purchase land, build houses, and relocate people.
within Bugisu.
There was a government plan to relocate some people within Bugisu sub-region itself, or the east itself, and that plan to take people to Kriandongo. 8 years down the road, and another disaster. No audit, no accountability has been done.
You see?
It was
See,
worth
no.
8 billion shillings.
8
The
billion
problem-
shillings at the time. Yes.
That's the angle where I have a problem with my brother, where he exonerates the president, and yet he says the systems have failed.
Have not
There
worked.
is no president without a system. When the system has failed, the president has failed. So they don't exist separately. The best thing would have been for President Museveni himself to come and say, Ugandans, I have failed together with my
It
system.
become a disaster.
I am going home together with my system. We have become a disaster itself. So come and get for us another person. This would be the best thing. There are resignations which are acceptable. No minister has resigned. The president
Presidency
has not
resigned.
This is so
No, today
rare.
the minister threatened
This
that
is
he's,
the problem.
that he's going to resign.
Not just threatening. You do it. Do and say, this is my letter. And then we go to parliament and we say, yes, thank you for taking the good lead. And Ugandans go.
That might be a bigger disaster than
That's
the
the thing.
landslide.
Now, one thing we need to do is, here we should ask ourselves, yes, we know disasters or landslides have occurred again and again and again in Bududa. But where
And in other parts of the country.
Let's talk about Bududa itself. In that district, has landslides occurred in the same spot as this one as this? Or it occurs here, then it occurs there, then it occurs there. So you go studying in the reverse. Why is it, if it has not occurred, reoccurred in the same space? You ask yourself, why is it that it has not occurred in the place where it has already occurred? So what do you learn from there? This is where I still believe strongly that we should experiment with the reclamation of land from within there. We select a certain sub-county or maybe a certain village to see, let's do it here and see whether landslides will occur. When we do ourselves artificially what has been done naturally through a landslide. We create a landslide without people, where there are no people. We make the land to move. And then we level and we see what happens. We plant trees and see what happens. There is no continuous project where government is doing something as a research in that place to tell us that if we do it this way, we get this result. If we do it this way, we get this. There is nothing. Always they come to acting for money, for food. You cannot go there to distribute POSO.
Was that in the FDC platform
and you
during the
think
campaign?
everything is going to work out. You see? When our brother Honorable Musa Chwero comes to Parliament, the first report, you can even predict what he's going to say before he says it. And now we have got a trucks of POSO. This is the problem, you see?
And then he'll tell you, for us, we're a coordination ministry, so we coordinate international and local humanitarian efforts.
Let me ask you a question. How about FDC? What contingency plan did you have, and what is your involvement in this
These
disaster?
are the things. For us, we make alternative policies and give them to the government, and they look at them to see how they work, whether they work or not. These ones, when we give them like this, they don't implement them. But if we had the full power given by the people, we would say and do what we do.
No, what I'm asking, what is the
president?
president?
gave you the power, but you failed to protect it.
Who is the president of FDC and the entire structure? Patrick Amore.
Engineer,
Yes. What has, for example, what is the reaction? How are you taking this Bududa and can't you give humanitarian assistance and you look better than the government?
We have a full department that deals with this. We don't want to look like the government all the time. Government comes with the humanitarian relief, food, POSO. What else? If we look, if we bring POSO like the way Moses does, we want to come with ideas and say, what if we do it this way? This is why the thinking is about
because
prevention.
I think in all fairness, you suggest a potential functional plan.
Yes.
Countries and governments learn from their disasters or periods of difficulty.
Let me give you an example.
And this would be a fantastic example. People have questioned what lessons we learned. No, what advantage we took out of, for example, the HIV/AIDS tragedy, because that would have been able to spur our own scientists to find out what can be done, the nodding disease, the disaster like that, what you're saying, if the Netherlands could reclaim the sea,
yes,
and make it livable space, why can't we respond and plan?
We
like
demonstrated this in
I hear you.
Recently, we had a problem of flooding as a result of water that lost its way. A river got silted.
Water doesn't lose its way.
Yeah, original river. You see, in Kasese, there's a river which has been displaced. That's what I mean by losing the way.
It's found in
through siltation of the original channel. So if the original channel is blocked, water will get another way. That's what I mean by losing its way and creating flooding. We had a problem there in Itura sub-county, a parish called the Waka Parish. We did an experiment. After reporting to Parliament again and again that disaster, flooding in Obongi, I stood on the floor of Parliament and told the House that I will not come here to come and report about flooding again and again on the same issue, because we know what the problem is. It required desilting the river, building dikes. I wrote a concept paper, a project proposal, I gave to the office of the province. They refused to do those things. I went and bought empty sacks myself. I told the people, you go and collect sand yourself. We organized, we drew something. People organized and came, villagers and refugees, citizens who live, who got affected by that. We also mobilized the NGOs. One NGO called LWF only came and gave us some fuel. But we worked this year. That place has never been affected by the same flood, because we created a passage for the water to pass as it was before. So we repaired the banks of the river which were broken by overgrazing. We removed the siltation and we created a channel through which water would flow peacefully into the river Nile. Now, we have solved that problem ourselves as people of Obongi. So, for me, I believe these things can be done. Where there's the will, there's the way.
There's a way.
Yes.
Thank you. I have a message here from, let me see who the message is from. Yes, the message here from Anthony Maseke, who says, thank you for the conversation. Honor has a good point. Before settling on relocation option, we must reflect on how we can make the community safer during the dangerous seasons. And this is the real tragedy, that since the major disaster in 2010, we are yet to identify the most appropriate approach to support the people in Bududa, as many continue to die. It's heartbreaking. We'll move on. I think, like Honor, you said it at the beginning. We'll move on after a few days, and we'll deal with other things. And that's why I want to take this conversation. Unless I want to take the conversation. The President Yoweri Museveni has been in the West. He went to London to attend the Giants Conference, and they issued a statement and said because he hosted the Giants Conference in Kampala a few years ago, so this was a follow-up meeting. I was actually thinking that I didn't see a lot of presidents or heads of government at that conference. The president was there. He had hoped to meet other people. His new major nemesis, Bobby Wine, his concert at the Charenga concert planned for 20th October may not happen. And he's been in Kenya today. You saw the images in the 9 o'clock news here. Honor, this contestation, where is it headed?
Look, of course, I think the media has kind of dropped the ball on this contestation, which had gripped the nation, and I think it's only fair. Maybe the media needs to resume the ping pong, because by the time the president came to tour the city center, demobilize kind of the ghetto roots of Bobi Wine, you could almost say at that point it was 2-1 to the president. Because by the time Bobi Wine came back from the US, the way he was handled, it's after he had seemingly scored a lot of ground in terms of publicity, it was a 1-1 at that point. So I think until now it was 2-1 to the president, if I may put it that way. Now Bobi Wine is going to Kenya, maybe has kind of scored an equalizer in terms of visibility of efforts. Because the president, his London tour, while some might visit, while some may interpret it as trying to regain ground internationally, it seems not to have really put a lot of deliberate effort in it. So maybe it was not part of the match. Yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, in my view, it's again a draw in terms of visibility of the efforts. Yeah.
Fungaro, let me come to you. You had some concerns which we discussed before the show about developments near your constituency in relation to South Sudan.
Yes.
You could share that with our viewers and then...
Yeah, what is happening in my constituency and in West Nile as a whole is that there is a fear from the citizens and the refugees who are there of security threats because they see a lot of movement of the UPDF, a lot of deployment in Arua, in Koboko, in Moyo, those areas are along the border. And people are asking, what is happening here? Because what is being seen is abnormal. Why are the UPDF moving with a lot of equipment, heavy equipment? Yet we were told recently that a peace agreement has been signed in South Sudan, and the hopes of return of peace and the refugees going back home are very high. But now when they see those things coming without proper information from the government of Uganda, people get worried and they ask us questions which we cannot answer because we see the movement of the troops. Yes, it is abnormal. It is not the normal way because the situation right now in West Nile is peaceful. The movement of the UPDF and the equipment is disproportionate to the situation and what people know. People have been informed.
Is that unique to West Nile? Because I think last Saturday there was a lot of movement of troops in the west of the country towards the Congo border.
With the Congo border here, there was a conference recently, remember, even in Kampala here, that there is a problem, ADF, there is some kind of talk like that. There is no talking of a peace agreement signed in the Congo and then warring parties coming together to build a government of national unity like the one of South Sudan.
But what if it was a request?
Our president of Uganda, the president of Sudan, General Omar Bashir, Field Marshal Omar Bashir, they were in Kampala here, in Entebbe, they were in Khartoum, and even in Juba, talking of everything now is okay, it's going to work. Now, the question is, has the peace agreement signed collapsed? Why is that kind of deployment? Is there a country that is preparing to attack Uganda from the
deployment concerning you? As an area MP, why is it
I
concerning
have refugees in my constituency. Anything which happens in South Sudan will affect us directly and indirectly also. We also, as people of West Nile, we have seen wars before. And we are told that Uganda is now peaceful. We should live the peace, we are told. And people are told to be vigilant. And this is the vigilance we are talking about.
You have just said that. You have said West Nile is peaceful.
No,
I
why?
believe the national army, or any army, part of its preparedness is to be mobile.
You see,
to do war games.
There is a baseline. Yeah, war games, people need to be told. If that, you see, this is a normal, this is a training, this is a preparedness. People will say, okay, these are our people, there's no worry.
But Honorable,
but the thing is, no information has come from the army as to what is happening. That's why people are worried.
It's not the first time that we have heard that UPDF is in South Sudan.
That's a problem.
They didn't even live in the first place.
Okay, we need to end the show. And I'm going to ambush Dismas and ask him to comment about Kim Kardashian and Kanye West visiting Uganda.
But before
and
we go
shooting
there, the prayer on this matter is the army should come, the Minister of Defense should come to explain to the Ugandans so that the anxiety is cooled, that don't worry what is happening.
I imagine that as a member of parliament, as a member of parliament, you occupy a very high position that you can pick your phone and call the CDF and ask those questions and get answers.
This one, they should speak to the country. Like they come here and they speak, they say, no, don't worry.
Okay.
They come and tell Ugandans that it is okay, don't worry. But
Okay.
without this kind of assurance, people will be worried.
I have about 3 minutes to get out of here.
That's the problem.
The thing about the coming of, he calls himself these days YE.
Yeah, eh? He's called Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
YE.
YE or Yeah?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's part of the rebranding of trying to show that the country is safe post what happened, the negative images that came out of the country post the Arua debacle. So it's just to show, it's showing masses that the country is very peaceful. Nothing wrong is we can bring such an international star, but for him we don't know how he's being guarded, and it's a public relations school for the government.
I thought he chose to come to Uganda on his own accord, not because he's not a visitor, a visitor of the state, a state visitor.
And you don't think that he's being given the necessary security
Maybe
being in the national park?
the dots one can connect is that shortly before coming to Uganda, Kanye West was
at the White House.
At the White House,
meeting with Donald Trump.
Maybe he's. Some people are using him to try and reach Donald Trump, who is a bit.
But you remember they quarreled with Donald Trump. They had a bit of a misunderstanding.
No, actually, they hugged before he walked out. They had a very cordial meeting. President Donald Trump was appreciative of that unscripted 10-minute engagement in the Oval Office. And then they had lunch. And then he came back. I think the most criticism that West or Mr. Ye has had is from other people who think that his association and his courting and his doing everything possible to win over President Donald Trump is a problem for them.
Yes. Media
but I want to say that this is a personal opinion.
Take? What is your take about
this is a personal opinion that Uganda is a beautiful country. Murchison Falls is an amazingly beautiful park for anybody to visit, and Chobe, where they are, is a beautiful resort, a luxury resort. So that they choose to come and spend some time here, shoot part of his new video, music video.
Music.
Yes, new music video, which he plans to release on, they call it Black Friday, 23rd November. I think they call it Black Friday. That's what he said. It's a good thing that Uganda has that very much needed positive international publicity.
That's true.
Whether Kanye West is the person and Kim Kardashian are the people that take that to where we need it is a different debate. But Kim Kardashian is one of the most followed people on social media in the world. Kanye West has a massive following across the world, and especially the United States. So I think from that perspective, it's a beautiful thing.
I am only saying this because if you look, there was a New York Times article about Uganda, which was a very negative public relations. Which was talking about the entire, actually I had never seen such a detailed article that was written about Bobby Wine's torture in a role. So that one creates, the Washington Post had its own article. So it creates this notion that this is a country where everything is dead completely.
Yeah, I think the point is that Kanye West and Kim Kardashian now at this moment cannot use the traditional media to try and portray Uganda in good light. They can use maybe social media. Because
for me,
because the Washington Post, New York Times are anti-Trump and they are seen as Trump's people, so definitely they are going to be kind of blacklisted by the liberal Western media.
Let me say this. For Uganda's tourism, countries like Algeria, Egypt, which at one time had very high incidences of what in modern speak is terrorist attacks, you would never have those affect the country's tourism. So the domestic political issues shouldn't affect bread and butter issues that affect you and me, where you and I can benefit if some tourist dollars were coming into this country. You're buying fuel at 4,300. Yes, and at international prices, the barrel is at $80 US. That actually hasn't hit here yet. You're going to wake up when the dollar is, the fuel prices have gone to 5,000 shillings or even above. The exchange rate is high. We desperately need money wherever it comes from, despite or regardless of the dysfunctionality of the political system. Ladies, dear viewers, our time is out. We need to get out of here. Well, we just can't end without commenting on a major kidnap in a neighboring country. In Tanzania, he's been recorded by Forbes as Africa's youngest billionaire, 43-year-old Muhammad Dewji. People might know him here for Bakresa, because they run that. He runs a lot of businesses in Tanzania. Bakresa the wheat, yes, and he is estimated to be worth $1.5 billion US. So he's rich by every international standard. Was kidnapped as he was walking into a gym at an exclusive hotel in Dar es Salaam on Thursday morning. Thursday morning. Thursday morning. He hasn't been found yet. The police in Tanzania have arrested, I think by the last time I checked, they had arrested about 30 people, including cleaners and security guards and other people. But that's a major story for the region, which we need to end with. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank you very much, Peter Komoroy. Thank you very much, Fongaro Caps Hassan, Member of Parliament for Obongi County. Thank you very much, Dismas Nkunda. And thank you very much to you all. I need to say thank you very much to Robert Kwesiga, Secretary General of Uganda Red Cross, and to you all our viewers for joining us tonight. And of course, the production crew that stay up late to deliver the show to you. From me, it's a good night.